Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yatchaya ritayor ekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna uvacha Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yatchaya ritayor ekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna vacha Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yattraya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna vacha Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yatchaya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Sannyasam karmana Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yattraya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna vacha Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yattraya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna vacha Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yattraya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna vacha Sannyasam karmana Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yattraya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna vacha Sannyasam karmanam Krishna Punaryogam cha samsasi Yattraya ritayorekam Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna said, Sannyasam, renunciation, karmanam, of all activities. Krishna, O Krishna, punaha, again, yogam, devotional service. Cha, also, shamsasi, you are praising. Yat, which, sreyaha, is more beneficial. Etayo, of these two. Ekam, one. Tat, that. Me, unto me. Bruhi, please tell. Sunishchitam, definitely. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all you asked me to renounce work. And then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Please repeat. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all you ask me to renounce work. And then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Purport. In this 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that work in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Devotional service is easier than the latter, because being transcendental in nature, it frees one from reaction. In the 2nd chapter, preliminary knowledge of the soul and its entanglement in matter were explained. How to get out of this material engagement by buddhi yoga, or devotional service, was also explained therein. In the 3rd chapter it was explained that a person who is situated on the platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. And in the 4th chapter, the Lord told Arjuna that all kinds of sacrificial work culminate in knowledge. However, at the end of the 4th chapter, the Lord advised Arjuna to wake up and fight, being situated in perfect knowledge. Therefore, by simultaneously stressing the importance of both work in devotion and in inaction in knowledge, Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. Arjuna understands that renunciation in knowledge involves cessation from all kinds of work performed as sense activities. But if one performs work in devotional service, then how is work stopped? In other words, he thinks that sannyas, or renunciation in knowledge, should be altogether free from all kinds of activity, because work and renunciation appear to him to be incompatible. He appears not to have understood that work in full knowledge is non-reactive and is therefore the same as inaction. He inquires therefore whether he should cease work altogether or work with full knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jalanjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayaham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guruna Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sadvijatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sativa Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakham Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garidhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Arjuna Uvacha, Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna, Puna Yogam cha samsasi, Yat Shrayaritayorekam, Tanme Bruhi, Sunishchitam. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial. So in his purport, Srila Prabhupada takes us all the way back to the second chapter. And there's a good reason for that, because Arjuna asked a somewhat similar question in the beginning of the third chapter after having heard the second chapter. In the beginning of the third chapter, Arjuna said, "O Janardhan, O Keshava, why do you want me to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work?" So as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, this Krishna had brought in this explanation of Buddhi Yoga as intelligence, and Arjuna had been a bit perplexed. So I'm just going to go through a few points that were covered from this second chapter. So in the second chapter, some of the significant things that were said by Krishna. He explained the Sankhya. He explained about the soul being different from the body. And then straight after that, he told Arjuna that his duty as a Kshatriya was to fight. So he starts with Gyan and then goes to Karma. And in 249, which is a significant verse in relation to today's question. 249, Durena Hyavaram Karma, Buddhi Yoga Dhananjana, Buddho Sharanam Anvicha, Kripana Palahetavaha. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. So Arjuna, of course, as we know from the end of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna thinks this warfare is an abominable activities. And Krishna was saying, keep abominable activities far distant by devotional service. So he's a little bit perplexed. So this specifically is leading to his question in the beginning of the third chapter. So after that, in the second chapter, Krishna had stressed on the fact that transcendence involved being undisturbed, being self-satisfied, and withdrawing the senses. He also mentioned the higher taste, but the stress of what he was talking about was being undisturbed. And so Arjuna was carrying on thinking that this warfare is an abominable activity. How can he be undisturbed in this warfare? So in the third chapter, he asked this question: why should I engage in ghastly warfare if intelligence is better than work? So Krishna immediately explains that full renunciation is not possible, because everybody has to work. He says quite simply, you cannot maintain your body without working. Srila Prabhupada gave a class on a selection of verses, including this one. And he says, but in this age of Kali, it's very easy to take up the dress of a sannyas. He says, you can buy this cloth for a few paisa. But he's speaking in New York, so he corrects it and says a few cents. And colour it orange. And you can go begging door to door. And he says, this is not the purpose of sannyas. He said, that's why sannyas is forbidden. Because we have to act. Even if you want to do nothing, you have to maintain the body. So even if you're pretending to be renounced, you have to go and beg some food for someone. So then Krishna immediately explains that the only way to be free from this bondage is actually to work and offer your work to Krishna. He tells him very strongly, don't be a pretender. Don't pretend that you're renounced. Do your duty, but offer it to Krishna. But then, immediately after telling him to do his duty, Krishna tells Arjuna, but for one who is in full knowledge, there is no duty to perform. So Arjuna again is wondering, maybe there's no duty if we come to knowledge. Of course, Krishna also says that one in this position acts anyway, for the purpose of educating others. And then Arjuna asks the question which leads to the description about lust. Krishna's answer carries on into the 4th chapter. But so the 4th chapter is mostly glorifying this transcendental knowledge, which Arjuna has learned from this 3rd chapter. If one's in transcendental knowledge, one actually has no duty to perform. And 4:14, Krishna says, no work affects him, and if you know that, you will also not become entangled. And in 4:16 to 4:18, there's a part that probably many of us are confused about. It's where Krishna explains how action is in inaction, and inaction is in action. It's even hard to say it, let alone explain it. And of course, we may say, I know the answer, it's devotional service. But the interesting thing about Arjuna's question today, so the rest of the 4th chapter is glorifying this transcendental knowledge. But what Arjuna is doing, he's asking almost a similar question to what he asked at the beginning of the 3rd chapter. But Srila Prabhupada in his class, he says, this is actually Arjuna being a very good disciple. This is pariprashna. This is asking a proper question. Because if one is not fully convinced to the point of being able to apply the knowledge, and one simply thinks out of false ego, I'm not going to ask that again because I already asked it, we can imagine the result. If Arjuna says, okay, I'm not quite sure, but in text 442, wherever it was, Arjuna just said fight. So after glorifying transcendental knowledge, Krishna says, therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So if Arjuna took this, okay, so if I ask a question now, then I really am in ignorance. Because Krishna has just said, with the weapon of knowledge, slash these doubts. So if he'd gone to fight, but he wasn't fully convinced, you can imagine what would happen. Arjuna, he's not fully convinced, but he said, oh, Krishna told me to fight, so I better fight. So what would happen? Give me some ideas of what might happen. He won't fight wholeheartedly. Yeah. What else?
Serve the Lord.
Serve the Lord. Yes, he's serving the Lord. But if he's not fully convinced why to act according to Krishna's instructions, but he just acts because, oh, Krishna told me, what's the result?
Each Sada, the Lord already said, and Arjuna understood the whole Gita in once.
I'm just asking theoretically. Theoretically, if you were in Arjuna's position and you didn't want to ask this question, and you thought, okay, Krishna's just told me to fight, but really knowledge is better than abominable warfare, so maybe I'll fight. And you might think, okay, so I can fight, but let me not do the abominable things. Let me not kill my guru. Let me not kill my grandfather. I'll fight, but let me work out. And he'll be indecisive. As you said, he won't be wholehearted. He'll be indecisive. So, as a proper disciple, he's asking a question. He's saying, I'm still not sure. What you've told me, it's still not clear to me. Why I should fight? You are asking me to fight, but at the same time you've said that knowledge is higher. Knowledge is higher than activities.
means he will lose the battle, he will not win the battle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. If he's not convinced, he will lose the battle. He won't get the result. Yeah. So here Arjuna is being a perfect disciple. He's saying, look, I'm not sure. Please explain to me. Please tell me why. So in this chapter, Krishna goes to a higher level now. Now the third chapter was called Karma Yoga, and it explained working, doing our prescribed duties as an offering, as a sacrifice to Vishnu. So here in this fifth chapter, it carries further and explains that actually work in devotional service will lead to renunciation. Because if you work in full knowledge, you will renounce. So in Surrender Unto Me, Burijan Prabhu gives an example how we might understand how it is that work and devotion will actually lead to renunciation. He's saying that if you have one thing in your hand, I forget what he said, if you have an apple in your hand but you want to pick up a knife, you have to put the apple down to pick up the knife. So like that, if you want to work in devotion, you have to put down your sense activities. You have to give them up. So if you decide first to renounce, you decide first to put down the apple, and then you take up the knife. But he explains that it's quicker. If you automatically go to pick up the knife, the apple is gone. They won't both fit in the hand. So in that way, by taking up the process of devotional service, automatically you will renounce, because you can't have both. Srila Prabhupada talks more about this sannyas. He explains the four orders, because he's talking to people who don't know the four orders. How, and not only the sannyasi is begging from door to door, but the brahmachari and the vanaprastha are begging from door to door, from the grihastas, and how the grihastas has to support everybody. And he says, you might ask, why I'm wearing this orange dress? Why am I a sannyasi if I'm telling you that Krishna says work and devotion is better than sannyas? So he says, you can ask that. It's a fair question. Why am I a sannyasi? And he laughs. And he says, actually I was forced into this sannyas for preaching. But then he goes on to explain how in working in Krishna consciousness, there's no difference between dressing as a sannyas and dressing in white as a grihasta, or dressing even in a pant and shirt, and working in Krishna consciousness, because the purpose is the same. The purpose is to do some activity and to do it for Krishna. So I've got something here which is very nice. That's not that. Just to explain this progression in the Bhagavad Gita. It's called the Gita Condensed. It was in Back to Godhead magazine in 2006. It's really condensed. In 5 minutes I'll go through 6 chapters. But you can just follow this conversation. And so, part 1, action. So this is divided in 3 parts, as the acharyas have done. Karma, and then bhakti, and then jnana at the end. So part 1, action. Arjuna. Krishna, please drive my chariot between the 2 armies. Let me see which followers of that criminal Duryodhana have come here to fight. Krishna, steering the fine chariot between the two huge armies, facing each other on a vast flat battlefield. Just see, cousin, all the great warriors assembled here. Arjuna, aghast. Krishna, I can't fight all these dear relatives, teachers and elders. My whole family would be destroyed. I'd rather die or live as a beggar. So this is the first chapter finished. Krishna, smiling kindly. You forget that everyone is an eternal soul, not a physical body. You can kill the body but not the soul. Arjuna, Krishna, how could I kill these worshipful beings? Any victory would be tainted with their blood. I don't know what to do. Please instruct me. Krishna, my friend, you are a warrior. Fight, but not for yourself. Fight for the Supreme. Then you are acting as an eternal soul you truly are. Fight all varieties of materialism and be a yogi. Arjuna, what do yogis do? How do they behave? Krishna, yogis perform their external duties without attachment. Because they have mastered their mind and senses, they enjoy inner happiness that is lost to most people. Chapter 2 is finished. Arjuna, you're telling me to be happy within and fight at the same time. That's a contradiction. Krishna, you can't live without acting, Arjuna. Instead of acting for yourself, turn what you do into a sacrifice for the Supreme. Then you'll be happy. Arjuna, what is this power pushing me forward to acting selfishly? Krishna, lust. Arjuna, born of festering desire, lust destroys your ability to think clearly. For a long time I've been teaching people how to use yoga to conquer lust. I taught the sun god, who taught his son, who started a long chain of teachers. Somehow, though, the original knowledge has been lost. So today, my dear friend, I'll teach it to you myself. So we're in the 4th chapter. Arjuna, how could you teach the sun god who's so much older than you? Krishna, ordinary bodies age and die, Arjuna, but my body is spiritual and never deteriorates. From time to time I appear in society to help the good people and to vanquish the bad. Good people get rid of their lust and turn their love to me. But there are many kinds of people, and I respond to everyone individually. Act for my sake, Arjuna. When you do, everything involved, your work, your equipment, your knowledge, become part of a blissful offering, a sacrifice for the Supreme. There are many ways to sacrifice, Arjuna, so you need to find a truly enlightened guru to help you sort them out. Acting without attachment and acting for me. This is in the 5th chapter already. Acting without attachment and acting for me are both forms of yoga. However, by acting for me, you automatically act without attachment, which is the moral we're coming to in this 5th chapter. By acting for me, you automatically act without attachment. Remember, I am your friend. I own everything, and that all action is meant for me. This is the last verse of the 5th chapter. Then you will have endless inner peace. You'll do your duty in perfect yoga or in union with me. To do this, you might find it helpful to perform the long austerities involved with the mystic yoga process and meditation. Arjuna, making the mind sit still is like trying to control the wind. Mystic yoga seems too hard for me. Krishna, yes, it is hard, but it is possible. Arjuna, what if I start the path of yoga and fail? Then I am a loser, materially and spiritually? Krishna, if you do the right thing, how can you lose? At least in your next time you'll be better off. On the other hand, if you simply learn to serve me with love, at death you will come to me and leave this horrible world. So that's the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's really condensed, but it's quite sweet. Okay, so we've covered a little bit about Arjuna's perplexity. We'll just look a little bit through this purport and see what I've missed. So, yeah, as we just covered, in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that work in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Devotional service is easier because, being transcendental in nature, it frees one from reaction. By simultaneously stressing the importance of both work and devotion and inaction and knowledge, Krishna has perplexed Arjuna and confused his determination. So I just had a little bit also from that class on this verse. Okay, so about renunciation and work and devotion, about sannyas. So Srila Prabhupada gives an analogy. It's a material example, but it shows quite nicely how two things are very different, but actually the purpose is the same. He says, just like in Manu Samhita, there's mentioned Kama Shastra, that just by dress you can understand dress of a woman, you can understand what her position in society is. If she dresses with her husband at home, she is dressing one way. If her husband goes away, she is dressing another way. Srila Prabhupada writes, just by the dress you can understand. Here is a woman who has got her husband at home. Oh, here is a woman who has lost her husband. Here is a woman whose husband is out of home. Oh, here is a woman. Oh, she is a prostitute. So just by the way people dress, simply by the dress you can understand. So because you can't directly approach women, this was given in the Manu Samhita, so that you understand a woman's situation, a woman's position. So he explains, according to the Vedic literature, when a husband is at home, a woman is recommended to dress very nicely to encourage the husband. And when the husband is away, she should dress very niggardly. So at one time the woman is dressing very nicely, and at another time the woman is dressing very niggardly. But for both, her purpose is to please her husband. So he says the same in Krishna consciousness. If our purpose of Krishna consciousness, if I dress myself in this orange color and you dress in coat, pant and shirt, there is no question, there is no difference, because the aim is the same. Everybody combinedly, we have formed this society to work combinedly. There is no restriction, only orange-coat sannyasis, not white dress, not coat and pants. No, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to work combinedly in Krishna consciousness. There is no question of changing the dress, neither you haven't got to change your present position. It doesn't matter. One is in Krishna consciousness. There is this song, Grihe Vanite Take Sada Gauranga Bole Dake. A man may be situated as a householder, or a man may be situated in the announced order of life. It doesn't matter. If he is attached with Krishna consciousness, he is a perfect man. So, therefore, Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you are asking the difference between karma yoga and sannyas. There is no such difference. And Krishna goes on to explain that a little bit later in the first chapter, how Actually, he says Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga are the same, but in this he's talking Sankhya Yoga about knowledge, about Jnana. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, the purpose is the same. But of that, work and devotion is easier, therefore it is better. Karma Yoga means you simply work for Krishna. Then you are better than a sannyas. So he says, the sannyas is living at the expense of society. Therefore, the man who is earning and doing whatever he does for Krishna is more practical. So he explains that Arjuna was not a sannyasi. Arjuna was a warrior. He was a kshatriya. He fought, but he was a perfect devotee. He goes on to explain how in America nobody minds washing the dishes. But here in India it's a little different. There's a real class distinction. But Srila Prabhupada is explaining that for Krishna consciousness there is no distinction. Whatever we're doing for Krishna. The example is also given. Krishna was acting as a chariot driver. This, in traditional Vedic culture, this is also a very lowly position, to act as a chariot driver. But Krishna took up that position for his devotee. For us who have not been brought up in that culture, we don't see that distinction so easily, how being the chariot driver for Arjuna was such a lowly position. But in the Vedic culture it is a lowly position. But Krishna was teaching us that the position, the material position, is not at all important. The actual purpose is to act according to Krishna's desires. So Krishna Arjuna answers immediately. Sannyasa karma yogascha nishrayasya karabhuvo tayastu karma sannyasa karma yoga vasishite. Tomorrow's verse. Supreme Personality Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work and devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work and devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Jaya sanitya sannyasi yona veshti na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchite. So Srila Prabhupada also talks about this. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of activities is known to be always renounced. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining this position of working in Krishna consciousness but not hating and not desiring the fruits of activities is actually true sannyas. And how Rupa Goswami also confirms this in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he says, Prapanchikataya puja hari sambanit vastunaha mumukshabi parichago vairajam phalyukachite. When persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking them to be material, their renunciation is called incomplete. So he is explained in the previous verse how true renunciation is to take all of Krishna's energy and offer it to Krishna. Because actually this material world is also Krishna's energy. The material energy is Krishna's energy. It belongs to Krishna. So the correct way to see this is given in the Ishopanishad. What's the first line of that verse? Kinship you get whatever inanimate and animate within the material world is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should only take what is given to him as his portion, and not take what belongs, not steal what belongs to somebody else. So this is the correct position. Everything here in this material world belongs to Krishna. He has allotted us a portion for our use. So Krishna had already said also in the 3rd chapter that one should only take what one needs to maintain one's body. So this is also, that is our portion. That is what has been allotted to us. And actually, there is no such thing as renunciation. So Prabhupada explains this bhoga and tyag. Bhog means enjoyment and tyag means renunciation. But if you actually really understand that everything belongs to Krishna, then bhoga means stealing. Enjoying means stealing because it's not ours. It wasn't given to us to enjoy. And tyag, how can we actually renounce if it wasn't ours in the first place? So, in actual words, tyag is giving up what actually doesn't belong to us. It's giving back to Krishna what is his. So in this way, that true renunciation is simply giving back to Krishna what is his. The other thing about this, about action, is that when one comes to the point of transcendental knowledge, one understands one's constitutional position as a servant of Krishna. So, as a servant of Krishna, one must serve. That's what servant means. Prabhupada, in another place, he's actually talking about Brahmana, but he gives the example. Suppose someone has a degree in engineering, but he sits at home and is doing in his house, doing nothing. Then what is the point of saying I'm an engineer? So this also works. If I just sit and mechanically say I'm a servant of Krishna, what is the point of me not serving Krishna? The purpose of understanding one as a servant of Krishna is to serve Krishna. So that's why Krishna consciousness is so simple. If we come to transcendental knowledge, to act in that knowledge means simply to serve Krishna. So that's the simple conclusion from this 5th chapter, is that Srila Prabhupada explains it somewhere, that I think in the purport to the next one, that the result of working for Krishna is transcendental knowledge. The result of working in transcendental knowledge is working for Krishna and giving up everything material. So everything is quite natural. If you understand your constitutional position, then you will serve Krishna. And if you're working in devotion for Krishna, then you will, this knowledge, this realized knowledge will come as a result. So tomorrow's verse has a very nice purport, but I shall leave that for Maharaj to explain. It's a beautiful purport. I was tempted to read it, but I won't. At this point, I'll ask if there are any comments or questions.